Today I have in front of me another Sony camera. Man, I feel like they really are going for the world record here because has anyone ever released this many cameras in like a single 365-day year? I seriously doubt it, but yet another camera, the Sony FX3, which is the baby of their cinema lineup. And let's check out, see what it's like. This is gonna be the new trend. We actually use knives to open boxes on Short Circuit, which is the way that it always should be. Okay, oh, this box is actually pretty heavy, holy. Okay, I believe this is a lens, so we'll take a look at that in a second. Okay. So this camera is the entry level in Sony's cinema lineup. So if you're just getting into video or are trying to upgrade from an older camera like an A7S II, this might be for you because it's essentially an A7S III, which is an already excellent camera, but redesigned with a couple physical tweaks to make it a little bit more video friendly. Okay, so we have the camera itself. Take a look at that in a second. We have a power cable. Oh, the battery charger. Okay. A card reader, which I actually don't think comes with the camera, but Sony sent one so that we could actually ingest footage off this camera. Thank you, Sony. We've got the same battery as the A7S III, I think this was FZ100. The Type-C cable. A memory card, again, doesn't come with the camera. And the top handle and a shotgun mic. Now, this top handle, I'll talk about more in a second. Unfortunately, the shotgun mic itself does not come with this camera, but they did send one so that we could test it. But this is essentially the same shotgun mic that comes with the Sony K3M. So if you're an owner or if you've ever used the Sony K3M, it's essentially the same thing. And that's what the handle is as well. And the last thing we have in this box is Sony's 24-105 f4, which is again just a standard lens you'd use, especially for testing a camera like this. I've tested this lens many times and I like it a lot. Okay, let's take a look at the body itself because that is the main thing that Sony has changed. This is mostly a physical upgrade or side grade, depending on the way you look at it. You know what? Like, it feels slightly heavier than the A7S III. They are slightly different. The A7S III's grip is a little bit more rounded, whereas the FX3's grip is a little bit more pointy and triangular. And the A7S III contours more towards the back of the hand, whereas I feel like the grip of the FX3 is a stronger grip on the front of the camera, which I think I like better. But I'm curious to why they would change that. I mean, I guess it's maybe because you would use this camera without a cage a lot of the time because, as you can see here, it's got quarter 20 points all over the body. One on the left, one on the right, 3 on the top. And the idea is you don't necessarily need to use a cage for this camera, even though you could very easily. But unlike the A7S III, which has no quarter 20 points on the body, you have to put a cage like this on it, which adds a significant amount of weight. But with both top handles installed, let's see how much each weighs. Okay, so the FX3 weighs 2.26 pounds. And this A7S, with a tripod plate, of course, weighs 2.8 pounds. And this actually has the audio module, and this does not. So you're saving quite a bit of weight if you don't need the amount of quarter 20 points that you get from a cage setup like this. Let's look at the rest of the differences between these two cameras. So on the top of the cameras, they've changed the layout of the buttons. There's no dial like on the A7S III. You just have a larger record button, which I appreciate, and a button for iris, white balance, and ISO, which you could set as custom buttons on the A7S, but you only have one custom button here and the dials on the top and the back. So I think that the labeled button approach here is actually quite nice and a even quicker way to access things from the top of the camera. And then instead of power, they've added a zoom rocker here, which I really like because you can map it to clear image zoom and just get that extra punch in really easily from the grip without having to let go of the camera at all. So you could zoom in on the longest end of your lens, and if you need a little bit more range, you can do the clear image zoom here, or it works with Sony's servo cine lenses, like that 16-35 that I checked out in the FX6 video a while back. So you can control full servo on a camera this small. And the fact that they just put it in this little zoom rocker is pretty awesome. Now the body itself has this gray styling versus the black that they typically go with for the A7S III, which is the same as the FX3 and the FX9 and the Venice. So they've just trying to make it look as close to those cameras as possible, yet it's still in a very, very tiny form factor. For kicks, I'm just gonna actually put the 24-70 that we have here on this camera to see how they feel. This lens is not light, but this setup is so compact. Mount stuff here, you can mount 2 more things here, you can mount something here, and to the right of the camera. If you're smart about your cable management and your accessory choices, you really don't need to mount that much more. This is probably one of the most run and gun cameras available. Now on to the rest of the changes. On the right of the camera, the SD card slot is exactly the same. So you have SD and CF Express Type A. Data rates are exactly the same since both cameras use the same processor and sensor. On the left of the camera, on the left of the camera, you have different I/O doors. So instead of the HDMI dropping down, on the FX3, the HDMI just flips up. It's a smaller door and it's a little bit more secure. I actually almost forgot. They've added a fan. So there's 2 new slots on the camera, one on the left here, and then another one on the bottom, if you can see that right there. You get completely uninterrupted 60p recording, which I've never really had an issue on our A7S III, but I haven't used it like for 3 hours at a time. But if you are the type of person who shoots 60 FPS for, let's say, 6 hours or more, you could very easily get all of that time with no interruption or overheating issues on this camera and still have no real noise issues. But if the fan ever does become a noise issue for you, you can turn it off in the settings. It's fairly quiet, and the really cool thing about it is it's still weather sealed. Oh, before I forget, one of the things that they changed about the top of the camera that I am not 100% sure I like is they've moved the joystick control to right here on the right corner of the camera, which some people might like shooting from the hip. You can control the menus fairly easily without changing and looking like this way or going like there's no EVF now, so, or looking through that. But when you're using the LCD on the back, having the joystick on the top is actually kind of annoying. Some people might like that change. I personally, I'm not sure I like it, but they're trying something with it. On the bottom of the FX3, even though it's a cinema line camera, I am disappointed to not see a second quarter 20 or 3/8 mount on the bottom, because Sony, if people put a tripod plate on the bottom of this camera, it will likely twist because there isn't a second mounting point. Not something that any person who uses a camera for any period of time will like, because that will be one of those annoying fixes that you have to do mid-shoot. And then let's move on to the back of the camera. On the A7S III, you see that it's ISO, the self-timer, continuous shooting, or display by default. And then they've actually made video settings the priority here. So on the control wheel, you've got display, peaking, shutter, and zebras, which is just, again, more for video people. All those features would be very quick to access right out of the box with this camera, whereas you have to configure the control wheel in the A7S III to be different. Next 2 buttons, we have the FN for all the quick settings. In the menu, you can just change your slow motion really fast, or change your picture profile, or your zebra rating. You've got focus magnification, so you really quick punch in, which you can do while rolling. I'm surprised more cameras still can't do that. Like Red, can you guys do that? Punch in while recording? People do long interviews. The play, and then you have another macro that you can set to something else. On the top left of this camera, they've actually changed the power button. So now it's a slider, which is more similar to the FX6, which I think I prefer because it feels more solid overall. On the rear of the camera, there is also a large tally light at the top of this LCD here. And then you get this mode dial, which is in replacement of the mode dial that's on the top of the A7S III, which I prefer this button a lot more because as soon as you click it, you can just touch screen away, and you can just cycle this, and you get the mode that you want a lot faster instead of having to look at the top of the camera, press this down, and especially since we're using a cage on our A7S III, it's actually sort of annoying to press this down. And the last little change on the front here is you have a record button on the front of the body, and it's also a 6th custom key, so you can set it to something else. And I think that's pretty much it on the physical side. But before we show you some footage, a word from our sponsor, PIA. PIA is a VPN that allows you to access services and websites as if you were in a different country. It encrypts all of your internet traffic and uses a safe and protected IP. Connect up to 10 devices at once, clients for Windows, macOS, Android, iOS, and Linux. Buy a 1-year plan for $39.95 in the link in the video description. So here's a couple clips from videos that I used the FX3 to shoot this week. And honestly, I was really impressed by the usability improvements, because when I was packing especially, I grabbed the camera, I grabbed a lens, I grabbed my memory cards and batteries, this top handle, and that's it. Even though they're very similar cameras, and I like packing both of them because they're both really easy to pack, I will say that the FX3 was easier out of the box, especially since we don't personally own a Sony K3M, and so the fact that this top handle is included with this camera is a huge plus. If you shoot stills with the A7S III as well as video, the lack of the EVF might bother you, but personally, I didn't really miss it. The fact that you also use a small LCD on this camera, if you don't like using small LCDs and you want to use an external monitor, then that makes the setup larger and you sort of don't get the benefits of the fact that this is such a small form factor already. Considering this is the entry level in the cinema line of Sony's cameras, I'm a little bit disappointed that they didn't figure out a way to include shutter angle, because I was using the slow motion modes, and this is a gripe I have with the A7S III as well, that neither camera has shutter angle. For those of you who don't know the benefits of shutter angle, when you switch between a standard recording mode like 24 FPS or 30 FPS, and then you shoot at 60 FPS or 120 FPS, if you're using shutter angle, you don't have to change your shutter at all. You just don't touch it. Whereas if you're using shutter speed, every time you change your frame rate, you have to adjust the shutter speed to match almost every other camera we have in the office. The Reds, the Blackmagics have shutter angle, and that could be the difference, especially if you're trying to capture something fast, between getting your shot in slow motion properly or missing it. So Sony, I don't know if there's a way for you guys to do it. In all of your future cameras, even the mirrorless ones, please add shutter angle, because if you want this to be a cinema line camera, I think that's what would complete it. You might be asking, who is this camera for? If you bought the A7S III in July 2020, then it is unlikely that the FX3 is for you, because you've probably figured out your setup, or maybe you bought a Sony K3M, which would give you the audio features that this has built in the box. But if you're still looking for a camera, you want something that is amazing low light and a body that is made for the cinema professional in terms of layout and buttons and things like the tally light, then this camera might be for you, because out of the box, it is more usable than the A7S III. It is $400 more expensive, but that is a pretty solid value, because all you need to do is add a shotgun mic, memory, batteries, and you're good to shoot. So I don't think that many people who own an A7S III already are gonna go out and pick up this camera. But as an entry level to Sony's cinema lineup, honestly, I think it's a welcome addition, because when I was shooting with it this week, I quite enjoyed it. It was an easy to use camera, pretty smooth. A couple gripes about things like the joystick, but all in all, a good addition. So thank you guys for watching. If you guys have any other cameras you want me to check out, please leave the comments down below, and please subscribe.